Jumped over the bench. Let's go. Alrighty, welcome back to the RDN Roller Show here. We got a banger of a pod again. Back-to-back pods. Two tournament owners, two Team USA coaches. This is going to be a great time. But first, send it over to Ant. See how Ant's doing on over on the East Coast.
Yeah, so we had a great pod the other day with Tim McManus going over the senior men roster. He did a really good job at explaining everything. So we're back. We're on like back-to-back games here, doing another pod with Darren here. Goodwin coming up here on the podcast. And
it's kind of like we're in playoffs at,
yeah.
State Wars or NARCh. You know what I mean? We're in playoffs. Pucks are in deep and we're grinding.
You got that quarterfinal game Saturday night, got a rebound Sunday morning for your semifinal sort of thing. And that's kind of where we are right now. So the voices are a little hoarse, but we'll be able to, power through it here. Other than that, like I mentioned last week, just look forward to Winter Awards. We got like 7 teams. They're all technically 8 teams from NARCh. And it's like 6 or 7 of them playing under the Advocate and NARCh kind of banner. So pretty cool that we have. It's a lot for me to deal with, but pretty cool that we have that many teams coming from our rink.
Yeah, sounds like that East Coast, Winter Wars always a huge thing, and I know that they have the NARCh Irvine regional coming up in April as well too. I believe it's the 24th. Not the 24th, like the 26th. Probably got the dates up wrong, but they're in. I know it is in April.
You can ask Darren.
Yeah, but it's one of the biggest regionals, in hockey. For a regional tournament is that NARCh Irvine qualifier, which is always a sick qualifier. You get, some really top talent. I remember as a kid, and even now, but as a kid, playing with the Kodiaks, that was a tournament that we would just wanted to go to. Like if you're playing 14s, 16s, any youth, that's, you want to go to that regional because you get to play these just other nasty teams. So, that's coming up too. Probably talk to Darren about that as well too.
Yeah, I know they're sold out on their next 2 regionals. So Chicago is this weekend coming up, and then SoCal the following weekend, and they'll be in Philly actually on May. I was talking to Darren. It's a little close to the due date, so I don't know if I'll be there, but so we'd love to be there. But where it's getting close, man.
There we go. Yeah, kid's about to be a real roller dad.
I'm like legit building cribs, and I was talking to and we'll talk about this later, but I was talking to a couple of the girls from Team USA, just like for social media stuff from USARS, and like they're like, "Oh my God, we're so excited for you!" So it was like pretty cool, you know what I mean? Getting some praise there from them. So
yeah, there you go, dude. Now you're gonna have to get the guy into playing some roller soon.
Little Dominic, man.
So Dommy, that's an
Italian
name, right?
Yeah, Italian name.
Family, brother. That's family, brother.
Yep. So
brother,
Dom's gonna be a roller guy soon enough. So
there we go. Before we send it over the pod, we've kind of we've touched on a lot of different things in the last pod, but first, that Instagram account Wheels and Reels, California. They play out of the rinks in Redding, California. I was talking to the guy that runs it. I don't think he wants to be named, so I'm just not going to save it. We're a players pod, so that rink is actually unbelievable. I've never seen like the full size, just like what it looks like in the morning and stuff. And they posted a video of it the other day on Instagram, and I was like, that's a beautiful rink. I did not realize Redding, California is like basically in Canada. It feels like it's like 3 hours from San Jose.
Yeah, it's a hike. But I think Chucky Robinson plays out of there, right?
Yep.
So he's always on that account. But yeah, I saw that video. I was like, wow, because it reminded me of
they do him dirty on that account. I mean, they just wrote like one of the best goalies in the world, and they're just throwing up slides of him just getting like Michigan.
So they had the one video where he flipped his lid up, and the guy was like it was like a turnover. He said he explained it to us. It was a turnover, and it came back the other way. He flipped his lid down and gets scored on, and that thing blew up on this like Facebook, the goalie Sluts United page. It like blew up on there, and people were just roasting him for like flipping his helmet up in like middle of a game. And he's like, dude, it's roller. It's 100 degrees in there.
It's a beer league game.
It's a beer league game on a like Wednesday. Like, leave me alone. But it went viral. So, but the rink itself like reminds me of our old Sportsplex rink. So I always like the first thing I noticed when I saw the account, and then he roasts goalies, and then he praises goalies too with like big saves. So he's kind of got both ends of the spectrum, but definitely looks like a pretty sweet place. I like
both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah. So
yeah, no, the rink's sick. Just I thought I'd throw it out there. I know that Wheels on Reels counts kind of like blowing up, so shout out to them. But it's a cool rink. So it'd be cool to have like a regional there, but it is like hella far from everything. I didn't realize, like, I know Chico's probably like, a little far further from that where most of those kids are from, but Jesus, I did not realize that's how far they travel. Like, that's like basically a travel for us to go to California, I feel like.
Yeah,
So,
it's like a hike. I mean,
yeah,
California.
so that is a hike. We got NCRHA Nationals too coming up. That's always, I think it's like the D2, D3 division. That's always the biggest. D1's very competitive. You got the powerhouse Lindenwood. You got Bethel, Grand Canyon. You got I don't, you got a good group. I think it's 8 teams.
Yeah,
Linwood always kind of finds their way to have, more of the stacked powerhouse team, rightfully so, does a lot of recruiting. Grand Canyon has started doing that as well, and Bethel too.
yeah,
And it's pretty cool to see. Um, I did see Bethel and Grand Canyon played in like some type of Kelly Cup tournament. I think it like I don't not Kelly Cup tournament, but like it was like
yeah. I know
a
what you mean.
college bowl. I think more of a warm up for them to go into nationals. So that was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, even so I had some like kind of funny thing I ran into too. We have Temple University here is actually playing Colorado.
Let's
So
go Buffs.
I know I was actually
You know where to find us.
he was asking me, he's like, "Are they good? Do you know?" I was like, "I don't know, but I know they got sick unis and their goals got matching pads, so that's always a good start."
Yeah,
But
actually, the CU Buffs team is pretty good. A lot of some of the Fire kids. It depends if one of their players,
that's fun.
Adam, I think it's Adam Trunk. Depends if he goes. He plays on their ice team. Nasty player. They have a squad when their squad shows up. It just depends who goes. They have a player, Jason Rieger,
But
disgusting. He's really good. So it just,
yeah, you're national.
it's college
Yeah,
nationals, and I think with any type of finals, NARCh finals, Palma Pro, players play a different level. And there's one shout out, that's kind of off topic, but like Ruben Rumbot, a player on our Demon Dogs team and stuff. That dude, Paiha, regular season, great. When it came to playoffs and you're playing another team that plays nationals like he does, that dude took it another level. And I mean like another level. So it's like some players do play to another level when it comes to nationals and some don't. So it is always weird to see that transition of playing local guys. Okay, you feel comfortable to playing people you've never played before and seeing how actual comfortable you are. So it really just depends who shows up with that team, but they are a good squad.
yeah, and I also like, talking about like the nationals in general, like one thing I do like about like the college nationals, they're usually in like cool locations. So like where they are in Maine, it's so sweet up there. It's like a totally different vibe. It's almost like mountainous vibe, you know what I mean? Like you're going away on a ski trip or something, but it's a definitely a cool little spot to have it. And the Norway Savings Bank Arena is sick too. So interested to see how it looks like in that arena. So they
Yeah,
did a good job at selecting where it's going to be this year as well.
they've done one in Salt Lake City too, which was
Yeah,
pretty cool. I think that was
yeah,
like
that's cool.
2011 or something like that. So yeah, all different places. But all
Yeah,
right, well I
well,
think
we have a little wager then. Temple versus Colorado. We'll just
yeah,
little
CU
wager on
money,
it.
CU money line. Let's go.
Money line. All right, I'm gonna tell
There
them
you go.
Temple.
Well, I think we'll send it over Darren on the pod. Anth, if you want to give a little intro to like, obviously
Yeah.
Darren Goodwin, owner of NARCh. But this is kind of part of the Team USA series as well too. So
Yes. So as of recent, with a new national development program, they've released, pieces of information just kind of leading up to, the rosters and everything like that. One of the big announcements is Darren Goodwin coaching the junior team along with Dan Maxwell this year. So you're going to have a nice mix of coaches there. Darren, it's going to be his first time with this group of guys. So in this interview, we're going to talk NARCh, obviously, because, that's his baby. And then we're also going to talk about what got him interested into coaching this junior team specifically, and he's doing a few things out in California. They're going to help with the development process and that ongoing pipeline that Tim talked about the other day. So it's pretty cool. We're going to have more USA stuff coming up, especially because a lot of the rosters are going to be announced over the next few weeks. So we'll be doing a lot of like the Team USA stuff leading up to that, and then we kind of teased it earlier, getting some players on and things like that. So doing a bunch with Team USA, obviously bringing you other stuff, but this is definitely gonna be a good one with Darren.
absolutely. All right, well, let's send it over to the
All right, everyone, welcome back to another edition of the RDN Roller Show. We've been absolutely buzzing lately on the forecheck the past few weeks, bringing you interviews, and it's our pleasure to bring on the owner of NARCh, the man, the myth, the legend, Darren Goodwin. How's everything going? And congratulations on being named head coach of the Team USA Junior Men's Squad.
Well, thanks, Anth. Yeah, no, good morning. Things are good over here. Really, really busy, but appreciate the kudos for that. I'm excited to be part of it and excited for the NARCh season.
So you got two big tournaments coming up. You got Chicago coming up, and then we were just talking about this on the pod. I think the Irvine Regional, just in like all hockey tournaments, that's like one of the biggest regional and qualifier before you get to nationals. It's always like one of the most competitive. What are like what are you doing, to get, I guess, prepared for this? And like, you have so many teams entered and stuff, like the day to day.
You know what's nuts? Friday was our deadline, and our deadline, some events it's a very hard deadline, some events it's a little softer deadline, and I know people are just getting off the ice. So anyway, my point is, I had to take registration down Friday night because we had 114 teams in this event last year, and we used Corona a lot. We've got 128 teams in this event coming up. Wow. And I had to actually cancel the junior division and I canceled the 40s because we only like those are divisions that they're going to happen, but people kind of drag their feet. And all the other divisions are so big that I was going over the rink time with Alex. I'm like, dude, this is going to be insane. I don't know how we're going to fit all the games. So it's unfortunate for the teams that might not have been able to get in this, but hopefully they understand it's nothing personal. We just don't have rink time. It's a good problem.
Yeah, I mean, when you have 128 teams that are regional, that's like you said, that's a great problem to have. Is there any, for the Irvine Regional, any teams coming out of state that normally don't come to this turn to the Irvine Regional?
Yeah, we've got who's coming from your neck of the woods is Scooby Snacks.
There we go. They little 18 and under squad, junior squad.
Yeah, well they're playing in silver.
Okay.
We've got teams, a couple teams from Mexico City coming.
Oh, there we go.
We've got a good contingency from Arizona coming with different programs, Outcast being the biggest, but Yuma's coming, NorCal, of course, is coming, a couple Nevada teams. So yeah, it's it's right up there in size with Winter Nationals. It's maybe not, we had 145 last year at Winter Nationals, 128 the year before. Not quite the diversity with the teams from Canada and everywhere else, but everyone is out of the woodwork in Southern California. Everybody's playing that didn't get shut out.
Well, you mentioned something. You're talking about some of these out-of-state teams. I wanted to kind of ask you more about like the teams internationally too that have been attending NARCh as of recent. Like, what kind of impact has that had on the tournament, and how did you get in contact with those teams? Like, how did that all come about?
Kind of organic, different ways, I would say, depending on the program. I mean, you take like this year will be a little bit different than last year. I think in terms of different programs participating, there'll be even more variety, but we're not going to have those two huge groups from Taiwan come. What a lot of these international teams do is they kind of, and this has happened for a long time, they map it out and they come every other year. Because it's such an expensive trip to come out, and so that's kind of their thing. Some teams come every year, like Renee with the Desert Rats. I don't even know how many teams he'll have. I would say a minimum of 10. And I know that he's going to pick up probably some of Dom's players that was here last year, with kids that want to come or parents that are really motivated to come. That those same teams aren't coming. We've got Roller Hockey Concepts back from France. They came 2 years ago. They're going to be back. Of course, Dave and Pablo with the Golden Knights Academy. Some of these programs pick up kids from all over the world, and it's it's different. The U.S. is such a big place, and you go to Europe and you could travel 3 countries in 2.5 hours. So it's different in that way.
Yeah, it was cool at Winter Nats, like seeing all the different representation of different countries there from just players as an individual, right? Like with the Golden Knights Academy, you had girls from Spain, France, everything. So it was cool to see that. And I think it kind of like brings a different vibe to it too, because they're so excited to be there. And like we're roller hockey, like the birth of roller hockey where it blew up. And you can see just how excited they are to be at a NARCh Winter National, which is always, we always say it's the kickoff of the roller hockey season. It's like one of the best events of the year by far. So yeah,
Well,
it's awesome that it's impacted in a positive way.
yeah, and I appreciate that, and I agree with you 100%. Just wanted to get back. I don't want to leave a couple countries out that I know are coming. Colombia's bringing teams, New Zealand's bringing teams, and more teams from Canada. Pure Maple will be there. Mika does a good job with them. Zulu will be there, I'm sure. But we've got like some random teams from Saskatchewan coming and Alberta coming, and
Cool.
Ontario coming. So it's going to be the finals this year is going to be pretty epic in terms of international flavor.
Do you ever get nervous about those Canadian teams that come down that, like they play just a more physical game sometimes? Do you ever like when you see them coming, like, who am I going to get like on this team? Because they play a fun game to watch, and they do play physical. But, do you ever worry?
I'm not worrying what sense, like stuff's going to get out of hand.
No, just like it's just a great, like it's fun to watch. Like I like watching that Pure Maple team because they're a lot more physical than compared to another, like a Black Ice team, and it brings an interesting game to watch, because now these teams are playing two different types of styles.
Yeah, they're more run and gun, and
Yeah.
it's been like this for a long time. And even the you go back to when we had a lot of finals in Ontario, and so many good young players were growing up. They're all ice guys. They're all ice guys that are very skilled ice guys. So they want to come out, play roller, have fun. So it's just completely run and gun style versus, some of the teams that you mentioned where it's like, all right, let's slow it down, keep possession, play our game. And so it's just, good style. Two different styles make good fights, right? So it's interesting in that regard.
So keeping on like on the international thing, like when that the team from Chinese Taipei came over, what was that like for you? Like that must have been really cool, like, kind of step in the right direction, getting a team like that over there. And what did you see from them that made them such a good team?
One of the most difficult things is going back and forth with these teams you don't know and trying to get them in the right division because ultimately, I think 99% of people, we want the same thing. We want you to come over. We want you to have a great time, positive experience. We want you to be competitive. What I don't want is a team to come over, play in a lower division, mop up everyone. And then I got a lot of, pissed off customers that play NARCh all the time going, why did you let this team play silver? And like France a couple of years ago, when they came, not this group, but another group came and, they're, as you guys know, like different countries are pretty boisterous in the stands and, and they're cheering on there, which brings an energy like no other, right? But so this particular group I'm thinking of, they won the championship. And the championship game was a good game. I think it was 5-3, 5-2 final. So if people are coming up and complaining to me just because their kids lost, I'm just like, give me a break. Go back, practice harder, whatever. Like it was a good championship game. But, in a few isolated incidents over the years, a team will kind of, you second guess, like, yeah, we probably should have put them up. And the opposite has happened even more, where we put them up, they get mopped up, they spend all that money to come out, and it's not as good of an experience as it could have been. So that's kind of the toughest thing about it. And so I guess, sorry to be long-winded, I'm on my third cup of coffee now. The hardest part going into it is making sure these teams are in the right place. So there's some communication back and forth. We try to find people who have been to NARCh that have also seen their team. And in terms of that Taipei group, I heard they were going to be good, and I knew that they were, and they're like, we want to play in your top divisions. Like, just it wasn't even a question. So I'm like, all right, we'll see. I think that's great. It's going to add a flavor to the event. And not only did they play and compete, I don't want to say they dominated. The championships were all good games, but for a team organization to come out of nowhere and play in an event like the NARCh Finals and do as well as they did, I think it blew a lot of people away.
Yeah, I think we saw them at like the World Juniors, I believe it was, and they had like some of the players play men's, and they had like the 3-wheeled skates. And then, I think once people saw them on the schedule at NARCh, they were just so excited. I wanted to watch their games just because, they're a fun team to watch, and it adds the international flair. So it was cool to see them go there and win. Like that is, a pretty cool thing for the event to see as well too.
Yeah, I mean, if you're coming here and you're winning the highest level, it's like,
Yeah,
good job, man. It's incredible.
absolutely. So, NARCh has had so many NHL players that have came through, played NARCh growing up that even continually play NARCh too at NARCh Pro. You saw Connor Bedard playing NARCh. As a young player, did you ever see like that talent is, going to make it to the NHL, or is it, just too young to see, or, watching him play a role, or did you ever, see like, wow, this player will play in the NHL?
Yeah, there are a number of players who I thought would make it, and some did, and some didn't. I mean, going way back, I mean, I knew Bobby Ryan probably would. He's one that stands out. There were a lot that were already playing, Pee-wees, Bantams, especially Bantams. When you're 16U and you're a good player, like you kind of know if those kids are gonna do well. Um, our 16U Platinum Championship a couple years ago, uh, it had multiple NHL players in it. And again, that was in Ontario, so you know that those guys are kind of, they're on the way. But with Connor, like his shot, he like his team was good. They weren't great, but they were good, and they were playing against other teams that had like three or four solid guys. So even with three kids draped on him trying to stop him and knowing that he's the guy you got to stop to win the game, he's still scoring a couple unbelievable goals. And he shot like a man when he came over, and he was only 14, 15. So there was some hype around him already. It's like, all right, this kid. And you hate to say somebody's, especially a young guy, it's like, oh, he's definitely going to be this, and he's definitely, like, there's so much development that goes on between when you're 14, 15 and 18 or even 21. So I threw it out there when I posted. I'm like, this is going to be a first rounder. I didn't say first overall pick, I wasn't going to do that, but and I didn't know if that would be the case. But so to answer your question, yes, it's you see it sometimes, and then you get late bloomers sometimes. There might even be a couple in that photo behind you. That was yeah, that was, do you see that? His background photo? That was from, I guarantee you that was from 2001 at Tico Arena. So
Yeah, that was that the All-Star game? The Where you had the All-Star game with, okay. I remember that All-Star game you had, I know Pat Maroon was on there. There's just so many different faces, I think Eton too of, they're still playing, but it was like one of the most legendary picks because it's all these kids in their, prime youth age, and now they're still playing either in the NHL or high level, inline hockey.
that actually might be '03, but that's Tico Arena, and it's a pro game. I could see it. I could see
Yeah.
it. And it looks like the Mudcats, might be Mudcats Rink Rat. I could tell that it's old because of the next logo on the boards, and they weren't around. So
I was literally going to say that. Look at some of these logos on the, and is that a hyper logo on the floor?
Yeah,
And
Kryptonics.
like a V form. It almost looks like a V form logo next to it. So you could tell that's an age photo. I always thought it was cool because I remember, I think, and Darren, correct me if I'm wrong here, I think it was in Silver Creek. Didn't Sam Gagne play? There was a bunch of NHLers like that have played in NARCHs in the past, but I remember like Sam Gagne being there and being like blown away because at the time he was like one of those crafty guys, and it could have been Ontario or in Ontario as well. But I remember Sam Gagne being at one of the events as well.
funny story. Sam Gagne, I don't know if you remember, in 0405, there was an NHL lockout, and we had a relationship with the NHL where we announced the NHL Junior All-Stars. It was cool. And then at the NARCH finals, we had the Stanley Cup because it wasn't traveling with the team. So all cool stuff that NARCH benefited from because there was a lockout. Sam Gagne, I remember taking a photo of him to put him in the magazine in the back room at Joe Dumars Fieldhouse. And I'm sure I could dig up the photo. Like, he's got a polo. He looks like a little scrawny guy. And he's not a huge dude anyway, but he's another one. Like, yeah, this kid's gonna dominate. And I think he was 16 in the photo. And if I want to say he was one of the youngest guys I know at one point he was the youngest guy in the NHL at 18. So
and he's still playing. Like he's still playing on the Oilers. It's crazy.
That That NHL Junior All Stars thing was so cool because it would come in the magazines as well too. And you got, I think it was like the shirt. I think it was for 2 years, right?
We did it about four.
Okay.
Yeah, we mixed it up. You get a polo one year. They would do like they did a black kind of like tighter fitted shirt with a NHL Junior All Star logo. You look like one of the what was it, the Sprockets from is it the Sprockets? I don't know. I'm aging
Was
myself here.
it was like the turtleneck kind of like
Yeah.
yeah,
From
yeah, yeah, yeah. I had that one. I don't know how I got picked. I mean, tournament
we,
director must have felt sorry for me or something, but somehow I got picked, and it was
we didn't want to ship them. You were working at the rink, something like that, right?
yeah, I think that's what it was. Talking about like this rink in particular, is there a favorite NARCh Summer Finals like rink location or even year that you had? You're like, this was just it ran great, it was smooth. Is there a certain year that sticks out to you that you liked the most?
Every year is a little different for different reasons, and they're all memorable. Some of it's the competition, some of it's the facility, some of it's because of how smooth or non-smooth it ran. Uh, the rink you're looking at, or the rink in the background, was probably my favorite to go to, just because the facility was beautiful. It was a vacation destination, sort of. California people don't really like going there, but for everybody else in the country, they like Florida. Um, so I have a lot of good memories from there. But even, more recently, when I left Irvine last year after it all, it's a huge kind of decompression of everything. It's like big sigh of relief. All right, it's over. And it's like, man, that was a great event. So many good games. It was smooth, and they all vary. And we had some really good times in San Jose too. Some really, really good times in San Jose. And even the Hershey Center in Canada. Like we've been lucky to go to a lot of good venues. I would say one that sticks out on the other side of the coin would be Cincinnati in '04. And it Yeah, and it's not that we didn't know where we were going to go that year, and I knew that by doing it there, we would get a record-breaking turnout because a lot of people could drive there. Being in the Midwest, I mean, there's a reason Tim keeps State Wars kind of in that market. It's such a good spot for people to get to. But we you go there, you got to cover the ice. They had like, I don't know, it was like Chuck E. Cheese in one side of the building. There's a huge figure skate that's ugly. In fact, that orange banner that you guys have seen a million times at NARCh events, that's absolutely huge.
Yeah,
It was made to cover the figure skate in '04 in Cincinnati. And it did. It covered it, but it was like that banner had to be made in two pieces. It's so big. So
that's crazy. Yeah, I remember the Cincinnati had like a Chuck E. Cheese had a place like in the middle of it, right next to one of the rinks, and you're like playing a game and you're hearing kids scream. You're like, what's going on here? But yeah, I remember the Cincinnati rink. That was a cool rink. But like you said, all those rinks, like getting to go to Canada, that was a really cool experience for like a lot of the American teams too. And there was a lot more Canadian teams, so the competition was very high. Just in the physical regard and stuff. So yeah, I really enjoyed the Mississauga rink. That was one of the funnest rinks I can recall.
Rob, it sounds like you're afraid of the Canadians. What's going on here? Like,
Dude, I don't. Okay, the Canadians are just like I remember being young, going up to Edmonton and playing like 14 and under. There's a team like Manitoba Elite, and they all they're all ice players. They're just like levels above, and I just always have. I thought the game has been the way they played it been so interesting and so cool, and the roller aspect. I love the physical stuff, so I just thought it was cool how they play. So anytime I see a Canadian team, I'm just like, this
I,
team's gonna play hard. It's gonna be a good game.
I remember in men's plat the one year when we were doing Liberty, we played a team from Western Canada. I don't remember their name, Darren. You might, but I remember everyone was like, "Oh, these guys are gonna be ice guys. They're not gonna be able to skate." Blah blah blah. We go up like quick 2-0. They came back and beat us like 8-2, like 8 unanswered because every shot they took was like back bar, and it was I think it was in a semifinal game. I want to say, and we were a pretty good men's plat team, growing up and stuff, and I was like, what the hell? So Rob, I'm right there with you. Honestly, you're giving me PTSD from that because I remember going out there with 2-2 rip. We take a couple penalties. Next thing you know, like we look at the roster, we're like, half these kids playing the WHL. Like, what were we thinking? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We got smoked by them 8-2. We were just like depressed. So yeah, I think it was in Florida, I want to say. So they were a good team. I don't remember what their name was, but I remember they were like green and black and they were nasty. So
Back when you were, in those years, there were a lot, and there were a lot of, a lot of kids playing juniors that were just on the team. Nobody knows them, right? Because they
he
just
did it.
well, I mean, you might know them locally wherever you're from, but yeah, a lot of people would get recognized at the NARCh finals. But here's a fun fact for you guys to think about. I was thinking about this the other day. Like in the program now, and even through all the kids, like very few people take slap shots. Like I still take slap shots. Like a lot of the old ice guys, they still take slap shots. And Canadians take slap shots too. So most of the Americans, there's not that many guys that I notice that take slap shots, and I think it's kind of a unique. I don't know if it's just because of the ice background, which doesn't really make a lot of sense because everybody here plays ice too. But for whatever reason, maybe it's just me and it sticks in my head. Like, who's taking
You're right.
the old guys and the Canadians. That's who's taking slap shots.
Yeah, that famous slap shot goal from our Liberty game against Palma. You posted it like I feel like once every other year, where my buddy Jeff came down, took that slapper from like half court and it went bar down. So it's definitely something you don't see a lot in roller, especially, right? Like how many times do you see a clapper in roller? Not very often. Kind of talking about, you were talking about all these teams that have competed in NARCh over the years. Is there any like rivalry that sticks out of like amongst like two organizations coming together, whether it's from the past or it's present day?
There's a lot of good ones. Like honestly, you caught me off guard a little bit. I would say early days, it would have been the younger sniper teams against pretty much anybody. Like they just
New Yorkers.
They had good teams. They battled hard. Tim actually coached them, and yeah, they had some good paddles with like the Predators from out here. Just like memorable stuff where the game would unfortunately turn into a little bit of a shit show, and kind of stuck out for the wrong reasons because I'm handing out suspensions. I'm hearing from one side, what do you expect me to do? The guy bit me, and then the other side, and it's like, all right, well, yeah, pretty gnarly stuff way back in the day.
On them.
It didn't happen too much. Maybe that's why it sticks out, right? So, but no, I mean, way back in the day, and again now, I mean, the OC Blades always had good programs. They're 88s, 89s, like pretty much all of them. And then they kind of went away, and Skylar's brought them back from the dead and done a really good job with that program, along with Dan Maxwell, and plugging in some young coaches, and give them a lot of credit. They play the Bulldogs out here all the time, like every single tournament. I mean, there's probably a game going on right now at the tourist between the two of them. So it's when I think of good rivalries, I think of teams from the West Coast, team from the East Coast that kind of end up in the championship quite a bit. And there's been a lot over the years, but I can't think of too many off the top of my head.
Yeah, I remember I always loved growing up, 16s, 14s, going to NARCh, seeing the Mudcats and Palma play. That was always like a big rivalry just for, I think, my age group getting to watch in pro, just because the Mudcats were so dominant. Like Brian Yingling was like one of the most, he was just unbelievable. And he was our coach for Stallions, but just hands were unreal. And then, Palma were so young with Jerry Osterkamp and Eton, just a freak of nature, and he still is. But yeah, those two teams, watching them in pro growing up at NARCh was the coolest thing. Like they just went at it.
Well, and I think we're seeing that right now with pro, with Black Ice and Palma. Those two seem to be at the top, at least in terms of NARCh. Seems like almost every championship in NARCh Pro, those two teams are the ones that are in it as of late. And you're right, like through different decades, it's been different teams. It's a lot of different teams dominated for like just a couple of years, but Black Ice and Palma have kind of been at it lately. And like you said, yeah, the Mudcats they kind of came on the scene when I was still on the scene. And at that time, it's funny because they were the young guys, right? They were the guys getting beat like ate rip a couple times and stuff, and they took their lumps early, and then they figured it out in the 2000s, early 2000s, and certainly were competitive for many years there.
Yeah, one of the coolest things I find about NARCh in general is just the history. And like you're saying, every event brings a different story, a different narrative, and everything like that. And we could go back and we could probably have 10,000 conversations on, great pro championships, junior championships.
Revision versus Mission, one of the coolest like championships to watch.
Unreal. I mean, I remember the Mudcats versus Snipers. Like that was a great championship at Silver Creek. Like there's been so many like just great NARCh moments, especially because I was, a little younger there. You're watching those pro guys at that time. It was a little different of a game. They were a little more physical. They were like these, these men playing hockey, and you were like, these dudes are savages. But it was so sick to watch some of those battles because they really got into it, and those games got physical. And I remember NARCh always let you play a little physical, right? Like as long as the stick work wasn't out of control, you're always allowed to throw the body around a little bit. And that's what kind of made that pro like a step weight, like a huge step above like a men's plat or anything like that, is that physicality and those rivals were just like unmatched. So it's definitely good.
Well, in San Jose kind of exaggerates it all too. The rink's a little smaller. You've got the glass from top to bottom. So when, two big bodies hit those boards, like they flex but don't break, and
Wow.
there's kids right on the glass. Like if this breaks, these kids are dead. Like it, but it's not going to break. So to have it, to be right there and you feel like you're inside the game almost, it makes for a pretty cool venue to watch that high level of play.
That's perfectly put. Like you feel like you're in the game. That's like the best way to put it. So, all right, well, awesome. So a lot of NARCh talk there. Let's move on to the USA stuff. So, obviously you're involved with the USA program now as a coach. So what was most exciting about you getting on the bench again and getting back involved with the USA program, and specifically like the junior team?
Well, a lot of people don't know. I coached for years before I took over NARCh, and even since I coach my kids in ice a bit, and I still, I feel like I'm herding cats on Wednesdays, but I'm still involved grassroots level, on my skates and stuff. So I've always had a passion to coach. So this gives me a perfect opportunity where it's not a conflict with NARCh or what I do otherwise, and I can get back into it, and at a very high level where I could teach kids. I say kids, but teach these young men, things that I've learned over the years that I think will benefit their game, and hopefully they'll remember for a long, long time. So I'm pumped to do it. I think it's cool that it's in Roccaraso. I haven't been there. I think we were there in '96. I won the World Championships with Team USA at that place. So it's kind of
Good memories.
Kind of cool to go back. And I give a lot of credit to like, Tim and Alex. They're both, Tim's the men's coach and Alex is the girls coach, and Shane's coaching the women's, and all have great assistant coaches. I've got Dan and Vio, but I feel like that they've got the right people involved that all truly care about the sport. And yeah, I'm pumped to do it, and I hope whoever I select on the team is excited to play for me.
With you being the coach and owning NARCh, running NARCh, is there a way that NARCh can play a hand with Team USA in this aspect?
Yeah, great question. I 100%, and I think it has already shown. I mean, just by me promoting, I said, look, I really want to. I know we can't go everywhere and do camps everywhere, but one of the things that's very, very important to me is I want to make sure that every kid who's truly at that high level, who has a chance to make that team, gets a look and a legitimate chance to make that team. So we're doing this camp in Southern California right before the NARCh regional, which everyone, we talked about the teams, everyone that's anyone on the West Coast is going to be there. So we'll get a really good look at the players on the West, and then on the East, I've been talking to Tim and Greg and either other coaches I respect, and for the kids that, well, let me back up. First off, you've got to apply to be considered. We have 58 kids who have applied right now. So part of what makes me being involved, I think that's a little bit special, is that's how it should be. It shouldn't be there's 18 kids and we're taking 12. I mean, that's just not a real Team USA. So we've got 58 kids that have applied so far, and the cutoff is soon, but I think we're going to be able to put together a great team. They were looked at Winter Wars East with again with Tim and Greg. I'm going to be in Chicago next week. There's quite a few kids that applied. They're going to be playing in that tournament. Peter will be there. Costanza will be there too to give me their input as well. And then I'm looking forward to the camp. So I think there's always going to be some tough cuts, and we're going to be in situations where it's kind of a coin toss probably between a couple different players, and it's going to come down to who we think will probably work well together rather than who's just the best player in a certain situation. So we'll see. I mean, tough coaching things, right? That's part of the challenge of coaching.
Yeah, I think one thing that you did say is, the right people are ahead of this and are in the right places. And I've mentioned this to you in the past about, I think it's really good for, NARCh, USA, the growth of roller hockey, because now you're going to get a lot more input. You see these players, you see them at tournaments, you see how they act, how they lose, how they win. So I feel like kind of might see a little change in demeanor in some of these players when they're playing at these tournaments, because you're not just playing at NARCh now, you're playing under the Team USA banner if you want to make that team. And you kind of have to, every tournament matters now. It's not just, okay, cool, we got swept in regionals. It's like, no, you got to show up.
That's a great point by you, and I agree 100%. Let's just say hypothetically it comes down to 3 different players and they're all very close to making the team, and one player sort of has a history of taking bad penalties when he's down and frustrated, and maybe another guy chirps too much at the other team, but they're both great players. And then the third guy is maybe very close to as good or just as good, but he seems to be more of a team guy. Well, it's a no-brainer. We're taking the team guy. So that's a valid point you brought up.
And Tim brought it up the other day. Like, you can't have 10 goal scorers on the team or 12 goal scorers, right? You need guys to fill roles. And sometimes that guy who's a good, we'll call it like a glue guy, and still works hard and works his bag off, he's going to be the guy that I know I would want to coach, you would want to coach. And something you mentioned, like with the collaboration of all these great hockey minds coming together, another thing I think you, Tim, Maxwell, everyone bring to the table is professionalism. And I think when you play for your country, you have to have that level of professionalism. You can't be, like you said, chirping another country, right? And things like that. You need to just recognize that you're wearing the Team USA jersey. And I think, from you playing and coaching teams in the past, right, you're bringing this level of professionalism that these junior kids really do need, especially at that age group. I think it's going to be a huge benefit by having you, Dan, and Vio on there.
Well, I appreciate that. And I agree with you. Like, I'm pretty no nonsense. And, you got to respect the game, especially with what I do for a living. Like there's only so much I can do about it at times in a tournament, but there are certain times where I'll see a situation and I'll be like, man, that kid's lucky I'm not coaching him. Right. Because it just doesn't stand. He's out there looking like a jackass. So, yeah, that's not going to fly with Team USA.
You're like, you're the torts of roller hockey. I love it. You know what I mean? You're honest and
hopefully I win more than he has been lately.
Oh, come on. That's a low blow.
So with this junior, you were talking about the ID skate coming up. Is there any details you can give us about that skate? Like what is going to be at that skate and what can players expect?
It's going to be, we'll do a couple drills, but the main thing is scrimmage, and we'll probably move some kids around and see, some different combinations. But, if they're kids in question, a lot of the kids I've seen play before, but, they'll kind of be under a magnifying glass that weekend. And then we get to see them play throughout the tournament as well. So, if it comes down to, we're debating between a few kids, we at least get to see them for 4 or 5, depending if they're playing one division, maybe 8 or 10 more games, right? To see kind of how they do and compare them. But so it's more of a scrimmage. It should be great. We got a lot of talent. I mean, we've got some kids that are younger that aren't really, they're not trying out for this year's team per se. They're a really good 08 or a couple even 09s, but they want to be put on the radar for those future teams, which I think's a good idea. A little bit twofold. I don't want just a bunch of bodies out there to where we're not getting the best against the best. So I think right now, I think there's about 20 kids, which is a perfect number. And if I'm being completely honest, it could change, but I think there's probably, I predict there'll probably be 4 or 5, maybe 6 spots up for grabs at that point. So going into that last weekend, because we select the team right after that weekend, and it's not just my decision. Get input from the assistant coaches, but ultimately it's the committee's decision. And Rob Cherneman's on the committee, Laura's on the committee. They'll both be there watching as well. So it's a collective agreement on who's going to make the team, but I would say we have probably a little more say so than just somebody randomly on the committee. But we'll see.
Yeah, it's cool because again, we're talking about all these people that are involved in it. It's so much more organized of a process now, and even being able to organize something like this ID skate for these junior players, even if they're younger, to get in that pipeline and get on your radar, get on the coach's radar, the board's radar is unbelievable. And with all these eyes watching, I mean, is there anything in particular, like if you're talking to a junior player and he's interested, is there anything you're specifically looking for as like a coaching staff? Like you talked about being a good teammate. You talked about, obviously, Tim talked about playing year round and not just showing up and playing roller. Is there anything else that you would recommend to a junior player coming to this skate or looking to get interested with Team USA?
If I had some advice, it would probably be don't try to do too much, because so many kids that age, they'll, they feel like, all right, I got a 1-on-2 and I got to walk these 2 guys to make an impression. And, 9 times out of 10, they're going to lose the puck. They're going to turn it over and they're going to, end up giving up an odd man rush the other way or whatever. And I think a lot of kids, they're great players, super skilled, but they need to simplify their game to take it to the next level and trust their teammates more. And in a lot of these situations, it's a little bit tough because they might play for a team where they got to be the guy and they got to put the team on their back. And if they're not doing that, their team's not winning. So now you're asking a kid like that, who's now among other kids that are similar, like, don't do that anymore. Move the puck, make the easy play, let the puck do the work. Let's keep possession. Let's, score when we have an opportunity. So there'll be an adjustment for some kids to make the team.
I think at that age group, that's a perfect word of advice, because sometimes when you have that 1-on-2, you want to take them, but sometimes it's better to just pull it back and keep the possession, because especially in the international game, it's a little more chaotic. I feel like it's not as much of the puck possession. So if you could dominate the puck, that's usually when you frustrate other countries and they break their system a little bit, because you're going to see, against USA, typically you see the box a lot. And if you could pull them out of that and get them one-on-one in certain situations, it's usually a benefit for the team anyway. So I think that's great advice, is don't try to do too much, and, obviously work hard and really take it seriously and be dedicated to being a part of Team USA.
No, well said. I know you've been part of it quite a bit, huh?
Yeah, well, I got lucky, blind nut finds blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while. So
is there, you've talked about coaching in the past.
Let me go back to Anth real quick. Like, dude, you impressed me at Winter Nationals. You played for Skittles. Like you were,
thanks.
I was kind of like, all right, let's see what he's got. Like a bunch of young kids, but no, you kind of played like the elder quarterback, made some good plays, scored some nice goals. Like,
yeah.
Oh, because I kept trying to get good photos of you, so I was watching you a lot. So,
well, I got the crazy head tilt going on, so it's hard to get a good photo of me on the rink. But yeah, that was, what I said? I don't know if you just like real quick. I feel like that 35s division was almost harder than pro at some points, or that 30 and over division, sorry, was like harder than pro, because those games were like, they were battles. They were physical and everything. So playing 2 divisions, I learned my lesson, but I appreciate it. I mean, playing with them was different too, because they're so young and run and gun. I was like, guys, we got to pull it back every once in a while. So, and we were light, as far as like the bench win and everything. So I appreciate it. But, like I said, played a couple of years with the Team USA program, and obviously I admired those years. And I think playing internationally is one of the coolest things you could ever do. I think, and right, from experience and coaching it as well, like, it is a different feel than playing like just your regionals, nationals, things like that. So
it's funny you bring that up, because I did it last year, and I'm going to do it again this year. There's a World Championships for the old guys, right? It's a what's it? It's kind of it's a Legends tournament, I guess is what they call it. David with I believe it's Miwa runs it. It's a good event. So it's 38s, 45s, and 50s. And a lot of the guys that grew up playing NARCh that are still good players that still want to get out there and be part of it, they are part of it. And it's really cool to go to a different, even at our age, to go to a different country, bond with the guys, shoot the shit in the locker room and have some fun. And, at this point in our lives, we take our wives, have some, it's more of a sightseeing trip too, with some hockey combined into it. But it's, I guess my point is, like, it doesn't get old representing your country, especially Team USA. So a lot of guys really look forward to this event, and I'm looking forward to it.
Can you talk about some of the players on your roster that you guys have going out there, and like who they are?
For 50 and over?
Yeah, if it's been released.
You're the Legends, right? You're the Legends team.
How do they do it? They do Legends. If Legends is the oldest, that's the team I'm on. So
yeah, you're a legend, yeah.
It's Legends, Veterans, and Masters.
Okay, so one's 38s, the other one's 45s, and then they were going to raise it to 52, but they kept it at 50s. Glenn Mears, I know, is on the team. You kind of put me on the spot. I mean, the LeBeta brothers are on the team. Obviously, Rob's on the team. Jay Mazur's on the team.
Beauty.
This is off the top of my head here. Geez, who else? Terry Shook's back on the team. I think they just posted it, and I apologize because I haven't paid too much attention to it because I've been so wrapped up with the Servine event. But we got a solid squad. We had a good team last year. Fell short, played bad one game, which happens in hockey, and I think this year we'll hopefully bring home gold.
Your team's kind of stacked. Looking at the roster here, it's you got some East, and it's cool. You got East Coast, Midwest, and West Coast guys all on there, so it's pretty cool. Like, you have a guy from my area, Bob Meacham. He's the goaltender. He's a stud. Like, he'll take like 60 shots a week, like when we shoot around with him and stuff. You got Michael Tadeo from the East Coast. So you mentioned Mazur. I mean, that guy's just an absolute legend and one of the best human beings ever. So he's definitely gonna bring some entertainment. He got hurt right at the last event, and that was a big loss, right?
Such a senseless thing too. We're playing, I forget which country, but we're up pretty big, and it's the end of the game. We're up whatever, 6 goals, 7 goals, whatever it is. And the guy, like, turns mid-rink, takes a slap shot, hits him right in the chest, like from 8 feet away. With like a still mat puck, right? Those things aren't soft. So he had, his ribs were sore for, once we were, and it was a preliminary game. So he still battled through it. He was still affected, but yeah, he would have been a bigger asset if he hadn't taken a puck to the chest.
He's even off the rink though. He's an asset because he's just like the best, like, team guy. He's just the man. I love Jay.
No, it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Do you play some of the, like, players that when you were younger playing for USA? Do you play still some of those players from a different country, or are they still playing?
Funny you asked that. I was wondering that going into last year, and next thing I know, I end up at the bar having beers with about 15 people I hadn't seen in 20 some years. That you remember going back that far, because I haven't played for Team USA since I think 2000 was my last year. But people came up and remembered me, and yeah, it was cool, like talking about some of the old world championships and stuff. I mean, it's kind of Michael Hunt's a guy that, like, you could just sit back and watch that guy talk, and it's hilarious. Like, he just story after story. But anyway, to your point, yes.
Go ahead, Anthony.
I was gonna say, it's such a cool event, and you'd mentioned that it's kind of a destination one too, because you're going to Spain this year, and that's a country I've always wanted to travel to. So it's awesome because it's one of those things where I feel like as you get older, you bring the family to something like that too, because then it turns into you don't have many years left, as you get older, right? Playing in events like this, your chances become slimmer and slimmer. So it's cool that you can do something like this still, even at at the 50+ division, and still go away and compete at the highest level at that age group in a different country like Spain. Like, that's so cool.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, that's a huge attraction. I mean, last year was in Italy, and we flew into Venice, spent time there. Ended up spending some time in Florence. So, the trip for Tanya and I was, I don't want to say it was as important as the hockey, but it was as important as the hockey. Like it was a really good time. So Barcelona, same thing. I've never been to Spain. Looking forward to flying into there, spending a couple days, and then I think the event's in a place called Jaca. Uh,
Yaka.
Seems like it's in the middle of nowhere, but I'm sure we'll find some cool stuff to do away from the rink, river rafting, stuff like that. So it'll be fun.
I know last year at the event you took some photos, took some pretty cool drone shots and stuff. I mean, everyone knows you're unreal on the camera, making videos, taking pictures. Do you have a hard time when you're there, like separating the two? Like, I want to have some fun, play hockey, but I do want to get some cool content for the guys.
I didn't intend to do as much as I did last year. It's just with talking to a lot of the guys, like, we'll be back at the hotel and we're having dinner and we're talking old NARCh stories and, games pop up that like, remember this? Remember when that happened? It's like, man, I forgot about a lot of this stuff. And, obviously it makes me realize how important NARCh has been to them in their lives to remember the moments that they're kind of were going over. So it kind of inspired me. It's like, man, these guys, like, no one's really doing. There are a couple people taking photos and videos, but like, they're not going to be able to get access to it like I can give them especially if I'm just shooting them. So, kind of the rule I had last year is like, look, if I'm going to be at the rink anyway, I'm going to spend some time shooting these guys because I know they'd appreciate it. So that's what I did. And, I may do a little less of it this year. I may do a little bit more. I'm not quite sure. I want to make sure that my wife doesn't feel neglected when we're there either.
No, it shows the real passion, like honestly, behind it. I think, you're not only you're playing, but you're now, like you said, you're taking, pictures for these guys and you're doing it for your own, your own company for NARCh all the time too. But, to go to a different country, and do that, I really think it shows the true passion behind, why you do love the sport, for the players.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, I mean, my philosophy with NARCh for a long, long time has been, moments only happen once. And, I really, it's not that I can capture every moment on every rink, but I know from my life and even, the moments I've captured of my kids when they were younger, like it may not mean that much to you the next week or the next year, but to reflect back in 10 years or 20 years and show your kids or talk about a story with an old friend and to have those moments captured, it's important. It's important to me anyway to try to do as much of that as I possibly can within all the NARCh events. And I used to take some grief, like when a lot of this kind of when people we've always done a lot, like even before social media has become the animal that it has. We had videos and I mean, you guys have seen it. We pull up stuff from 2002 or whatever.
The old NARCh website with the photos and videos. I still I remember going through the old layout and you had the quizzes on the side. So yeah, the content has always been there.
Yeah.
So I guess my point is like some parents I used to hear like kind of whispers like that guy doesn't care. He just, he takes the camera and he goes to the other end of the rink. He doesn't want to deal with it. It's like, no, that's not it. It's just, in 10 years, you're going to thank me. I just got, your kid scoring an overtime game winner instead of having some random conversation with you. So it's just been something that's important to me. And I'm glad I'm still passionate about it.
I was gonna say, like, where did that passion come from? Like, have you always been in like interested in taking videos and photos like ever since you were younger, or is it something that once you started NARCh, you realized how important this stuff could be moving forward for not only us as players, but for the brand and everything?
Both. I even in junior high, like I was in photography. I was the I had photography every semester of junior high. Took photography, then I took advanced photography, and then I was the teacher's assistant for the other two. And so I was like, I mean, we're talking again. Most people on this podcast won't even understand, but like a dark room with emulsion and the smell of it, and real film and developing like. So yeah, I've always had a real passion for photography, and then to be able to kind of apply it to hockey. and what I love has been awesome. So it's combining two things I'm very passionate about.
So there's one thing that I kind of like want to bring up, but I also want you kind of more elaborate on too. I know you used to have the NARCh podcast about, I think, was it 2 years ago was the last one or?
I honestly don't remember doing any. I think we did one from Atlanta. That might have been our last one.
Okay.
So, yeah, so it was definitely pre-COVID.
Yeah, and I remember I think Eton maybe was like the first one, but it was really cool. What I loved about listening to it is just hearing, your thoughts. You have so much knowledge from like what we're talking about from like, the 90s game of NARCh, even the 2000s that a lot of people love to hear and talk about. And we were talking earlier that you're going to be bringing back the NARCh podcast.
I am, and I'm really excited about it because to your point, I think you guys have done a really, really good job covering, especially the pro aspect from not just here, but around the world. And kudos for that, because I think you guys do an amazing job. But I think even with what you guys do, you've kind of changed from what you started as. And what I mean by that is you were more localized because that's what you knew best. And as you've grown and got to know people and got to really be more knowledgeable yourselves about what's going on in the world, you've expanded. Um, Funny, I don't know if you remember this, but we did an Arch podcast at Winter Nationals in a restaurant bar lobby at a hotel,
Me, you, and Casey Escarcega.
and you were on there, and that's when you guys launched Roller Dad. So I had you on the Narch podcast talking about Roller Dad and how it was going to come out. And I think Anth showed up the next day and played in that. That was Winter Nationals at Huntington Beach. And so it's kind of funny how this is reversed now. Like you're now announcing that I'm coming out with a podcast when I did that back in the day. Full circle. Yeah, exactly. So I think where this is going to be a little bit different. The one we did before it was at events. We would just wing it. It was, dudes talking about what's going on during the tournament. Some funny stories for sure. This one's definitely some more thought put into it. We're going to do some recaps of the tournaments, implement some video aspects of that. So, for example, after I go to Chicago, I'm hoping to get Dan Costanza on afterwards and talk about, kind of some highlights from that event and then show video to go with whatever it is we're talking about. So I think that's an aspect that'll be cool, but there's just so many interesting people in this sport, coaches, players, rink owners, manufacturers, and everyone's got a story, right? There's a lot of things that to your point, people would be interested in that just don't know about. So I want to dig deeper and get by the podcast, make them aware and get to know people a lot better and what makes them tick, and also share all those great stories and background and stuff like that. So I'm pumped to do it.
Go ahead, Ann.
I think it'd be really cool to hear some of that like history aspect, like you're talking about, from maybe some of the guys who were in the early 2000s, late 90s playing roller, because I'm sure the stories are great as usual, as things were kind of crazy back then. But I think it's just cool to get like the whole history of roller hockey, and obviously you've been around the game for so long. I think you're probably the perfect person to kind of get some of those stories out of those guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like I said, it's going to be fun. I mean, it's not going to be, it's not going to be an old bird podcast where it's just me and a bunch of guys my age talking about stuff that we did back then. There'll be some of that for sure, but cool. It'll be some new stuff too, and talk about what's going on, today, where we might be going for future events, what I'm thinking, what people are doing in general at the rink. So it'll be cool. I've got some neat things planned that I think you guys will enjoy.
Yeah, if anybody can do lining up the video, doing the podcasting, I think the NARCh Pod's going to be perfect for that. You already capture so many moments from the past where you can line them up. So I think that's really going to be perfect for that. I got 2 hot seat questions for you. Okay, 1, who is the best hockey golfer in roller that you have golfed with? Like, who is the best golfer that plays roller that you've golfed with? I know you love golf. I know you do golf a lot. So who's the one that best that you've played with?
Oh man, I haven't played with a lot of them. I know that a lot. From what I've seen, there's some really good ones. Like Troy Terry, I know is a oh, not Troy Terry. Chris Terry. Chris Terry, right? I hear I've seen some stuff he's posted, and I think he's phenomenal. Jesus, I just went brain dead. What's his name? Pete Messina. Pete Messina from lives in Chicago.
Illinois.
I
Yeah,
think he just won his club championship. So,
yeah,
he's not he played for the Mudcats forever back in the day too.
yeah, he was Team USA as well. He's a big golfer. I still follow him. Yeah, he's a huge golfer. So I'm sure he's got to stick too, because he had a bomb of a shot. So if it translates to golf, he's got to probably rope off the tee. So
So those are a couple guys that I would love to play with that I'm sure would absolutely mop me up. But more recently we got a group together and we skated in that Lebeda rink a couple Sundays ago. And we got about 8 guys out to play golf, and I got to play with Brian Watanabe. And Brian's a stick. He doesn't like hit the ball super far. He's a smaller guy, but man, he's just from 170 in, he is just dialed. Like he's got a good short game.
Okay. Yeah, I know you have, you're playing golf, you have your golf account and stuff. So I just, always wonder. I know Eton's played a ton, and I see him always during COVID, he was doing that. So, just got to ask, the legend who he thinks he's played with
He
the
got
best.
picked up late, and him and I are actually a really good match. Like we're kind of back and forth. So Alex, who works for me, same thing, kind of back and forth. Jeremy Ellis, same thing, kind of back and forth. I mean, we're not. Look, I go out there and I'll have blow up holes where I'll double or a triple, and then next hole I might birdie and string off 3 pars. It's just I'm all over the map, but I enjoy it.
That's, that's all that matters. All right. Well, thank you, Darren, for joining the pod. We really appreciate it. I think this, we'll definitely have to get another one before Team USA goes out, to Italy and plays, just so when we have the roster out, we can talk a little more detailed and stuff. I think that would be really cool. But thank you for taking your time to
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Anytime, guys. I love what you're doing. I appreciate you guys as being part of this, and your friendship as well. Like we've had some good times away from this too.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's great.
yeah, it's we appreciate you coming on, and just to hear, just all the stuff all the knowledge you have regarding roller hockey is always just huge. Like I said, we could probably do 10 episodes with you talking about, the past, the future, the present, and everything. So I appreciate you coming on. And then, obviously, we'll talk to you before then, but best of luck, with the ID skate coming up here on April 25th. So want to mention that to everybody. And, I think it's a good step in the right direction regarding having you involved in the USA program.
Well, one last thing on the Team USA note. I think it's going to, by all of our involvement, I'm pumped up to show more exposure for the team, show some cool things, make the kids on the team feel special. Just even from a media standpoint as well. Like, and you'll probably see some things that I'm excited about sharing, to where what should be happening and what probably will happen next year and the following year, and it will just continue to grow. That every kid that is a quality player that's in the USA will want to play for this team, and they'll want to be part of it because they see it and they're like, wow, didn't even know this existed. This is something I definitely want to aspire to do. And it helps the sport too. It's one more thing in roller hockey where it's like, wow, that's a goal I can now have to be part of that program on the men's and the women's side, and the boys and the girls. So
yeah,
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Well, thank you, Darren. We appreciate it. We'll see you this summer, and hopefully we can get a part 2 of this interview talking about the roster.
Well, nice looking hat. Appreciate it, guys. We'll hook you up with another one next summer, this summer.
Sounds good. We'll see you.
Enjoy your Sunday.